Welcome to Composite Two-Star Recruits live edition. I don't have any confirmation that we are actually live, so I might just be talking to myself and Gerard and Ryan, our producers here. Thank you so much for joining us for another live episode. This might be our fourth one, third one. I'm not sure, but it's up there. People were demanding it. Gerard, aka Hurricane. I forgot to introduce you, but Gerard Martinez right next to me. This is the first time we've done it side by side. He's usually looking. He's actually. I'm used to facing this way, and you're used to being over there. So we're gonna get some taking used to. But Gerard, help us out. Help me out.
We're good. We got a little bit of a delay, so Chris is looking at the screen on YouTube, going, "Okay, are we actually on, or are we not on?" And then Ryan's giving him the heads up, like, "Yeah, go ahead, talk." So that was the great intro for our summer live show. We usually do live shows for the
get closer to the microphone, Gerard. Get it closer.
Yeah, signing day live shows. It's not going to really make a big difference.
Oh, no, it sounds different. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Doesn't sound different in my ear. So we're on location here. Casa del Cilantro, I think is what we're calling it, out in the middle of the desert.
Cilantro takeover.
And the middle of the desert in summer. Ryan has dragged us out here to do a site summit, a USCfootball.com staff summit, which does not include the whole staff, just us three. So we were talking shop and decided to kill two birds with one stone and do a live recruiting podcast for you. And so this is it. We're on location. It's a little rough. We've never done it like this before. And so hopefully the audio, video issues will all be taken care of. And more than anything, we give you guys the information that you are looking for.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys could come out here to the desert. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I won't be a big part of the show. I know you guys want to just hear the Cilantro Boys. But I just want to let you know, we had a little lunch here before, and I'm going to put this up on the screen if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, that's great. But we are doing this live on YouTube. You can watch the replay. Chris has a real girlfriend. I want to show you. It's okay.
Oh.
Got to pull the trigger, Chris.
He's okay as he's doing it.
I didn't do it yet. It's not done. Okay, here it is.
Well, no.
We had lunch. Bubba's Bones and Brews, I think, over here in Cathedral City. Check it out. We had a good time, and she's off going shopping and everything now. But yes, for those people that thought it was a mystery or just a not true, it's true. His girlfriend exists.
Well, now it's just going to turn into that's a paid actress that I hired to come out here with me. So yeah, there's a real person. So yes, shout out to my girlfriend who's off shopping right now. But yeah, I didn't know that photo was going to go up, but here we are. It's out there. So now all the people in chat can stop saying real girlfriend with quotation marks. You can just say real.
It's better when we could say very real girlfriend, very.
No, it's a real thing. I also didn't know that's what we're going to be opening with on. That's the cold open for the show, is that my very real girlfriend came out here for this site summit. So Ryan said he's going to produce this show.
Derailing it.
But I'm going to make this podcast break him, because if you are a fan of this podcast, you know we go long. And our live shows also go really long. So I'm going to see how long it takes for Ryan to tap out and just walk away, go make a margarita, go sit by the pool.
Blender in the background, or maybe a sliding door open and a splashing of the pool. We know where Ryan is.
I will be probably checking out. I'm going to probably go to the pool. I'm going to definitely have a beer or margarita or something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself off the screen if you guys are watching on YouTube, and you guys can watch Gerard and Chris. I will be monitoring the chat, and I can put your comments and stuff up on the screen. We already have can you do a cha-ching there, Chris?
Yeah. Well, that is on the Peristyle one. Yeah. It's there. I hope that came through. I hope you can hear that. Let us know if you can hear those sound effects.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it again.
He says cheer towards Chris's girlfriend's shopping spree. So thanks to Giovanni.
Giovanni, shout out my guy. We talk all the time on DM, and he's a Peristyle member. So shout out for the first dono.
Nice.
Again, we really appreciate donations. This show has turned into like a donation show for whatever reason. I don't know why.
We look poor.
It's because we look poor. We do not solicit the donations, but we very much appreciate it. We're humbled and overwhelmed by them because they stack up every show we do. So thank you for the donation. And the rule is, if you donate and ask a question, we will ask it or we will answer it on the show,
Well,
assuming it is appropriate to be asked on the show. But thank you so much for the initial donation. I wonder if there'll be a Moneybags sighting.
We'll see.
Moneybags Manford of the Manford Collective. He has been in every show that we've done, live show. But
people are still at work on the West Coast. I know a lot of the East Coast people had big smiles on their faces when you announced this was going to be at 3:00, and they're like, "Well, that's perfect time." For me, this is the crowd that also complains when I don't get the war room in the pro style by 4:30 a.m. Pacific time.
They're waiting.
They're like,
waiting.
It's why don't you have the war room up yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. I will keep monitoring the chat, but they'll just, you got the Cilantro Boys on the screen, and you guys enjoy.
So take it away, Chris. What are we talking about this week? It's going to be a big show. We have a lot to talk about. We're just coming off one of the biggest recruiting weekends of USC football history.
Right. We are coming off the Golden Hour, and if you remember, if you remember, the Golden Hour last year was obviously, as Gerard mentioned, the biggest USC recruiting weekend there ever was. And then they decided to do it again and do it bigger. And they did a little bit more, set the bar really high last year, and then just pushed it a little bit further in 2023. So we're going to get into that. And USC also got two commitments off that. Two public commitments is what I should say. Two public commitments off the Golden Hour. So we're going to lead with that in our cold open and recap the Golden Hour. Recap what's going on for visitors this weekend for, the final weekend of June. And there's some other stuff going on. We have Elite 11 recap. OT7 was in this weekend. We are going to talk about Taylor Tatum. I know everyone is frantic about that and the latest that's happened, because a lot has happened over the last week. So we're definitely going to get into that. We have a whole bunch of listener questions, and we do have a voicemail from Eddie, I'm told, that has been loaded up. So Eddie, he's very happy that we'll be finally hearing his voice on this podcast once again. But before we get into all that, obviously, I just need to do a quick shout out to the official sponsor of the Composite Two-Star Recruits. You know her, you love her. That's Meredith Schlosser, the #1 real estate agent in Los Angeles with over $600 million in sales. Talk about Lincoln Riley closing. Meredith Schlosser closes as well. You can learn more about her and her full service team at www.meredithschlosser.com. That is SCHLOSSER. And check out her business Instagram at Meredith Real Estate to see all the postings, the listings, all the deals she has going on. And that's at Meredith Real Estate on Instagram. Give her a follow. So, Gerard, now that we're through all that, are you ready to get to our cold open, which traditionally is always going to be a commitment?
Traditionally. It's the most important thing to talk about. It's not necessarily rocket science. I mean, the most important thing to talk about is USC's latest commitments, and this summer has been a big summer for them thus far. Remember, starting the month of June, number 57 in the nation, ranked nationally, and this past weekend, they broke into the top 10, Chris.
They are officially at the number 10 spot with 12 commitments now in the fold. Do you want to go by the latest, or do you want to go in order that they happen?
Let's go by the latest.
The latest. Obviously, the latest one that just happened is Jason Zandamela. You might not be familiar with him. You might be familiar with him, but he's an interior offensive lineman from Clearwater Academy International in Clearwater, Florida. 6'3", 285 pounds. A consensus 4-star recruit. I know USC fans love to hear that, especially when it is about an offensive line prospect. Number 62 overall prospect in the 24/7 sports rankings. Number 2 interior offensive lineman. number 112 in the 24/7 Sports Composite, number 6 interior offensive lineman by the Composite rankings. And this is a big one because USC was looking for a center prospect, and that is exactly what Jason Zandamela is. It was down to him and Devin Brooks. Those were kind of the top two on the board for Josh Henson. And then lo and behold, Devin Brooks, scheduled to come for an official visit. Boom, he pops for Oregon. So that left Jason on the board as the number one guy for Josh Henson. And if you know, Josh Henson is a center whisperer. That is his expertise. That is what he is known for in developing. Yep, he is a center whisperer. That is what he's known for. He is known for developing centers. Did so with Brett Nealon. Did so with Justin Diedich, and is going to do so with Justin Diedich. And Justin Diedich raved about just working with him in that short time when Brett Nealon went down, and Justin was working for the Cotton Bowl, and he's like, I've learned like so much just in like 2 months of working with him. So you can imagine what that looks like over the course of a year. So Josh Henson got Micah Benuelos last season. Jason Zandamela is now the center for the 2024 class. He is a very interesting prospect, and Gerard will break it down a little bit more. He is an international prospect. He comes from Mozambique. So he is actually the second international prospect in USC's class, along with Manasseh Etite, who comes from the Republic of Congo. So two prospects from the continent of Africa are in this class for USC. So very unique. But Jason Zandamela is a kind of a raw prospect, hasn't played football that long, but he's developed very, very quickly. Gerard, this is a big one for USC's 2024 class and their O-line haul so far.
Yeah, very interesting. It definitely was a bit like last year where we came into the summer and USC had two specific targets at the center position. You had Micah Benuelos and then you had Landon Hatchett. And Benuelos came in first, but he was going to take that visit to Oregon the last week. And that last week they brought in Landon Hatchett. And it was one of those things where you knew USC had Benuelos ranked a little higher on their board, but they needed to have a potential backup plan. And this year, it was Devin Brooks that took that visit to Oregon the week before. We talked about this on the podcast. Is he going to come back from Oregon uncommitted? Oregon did a good job, locked him down. He was very high on USC, I think very easily. Possibly, if USC would have got him in on the first week, maybe we're talking about Devin Brooks being the center commit for USC in the 2024 class, excuse me. But instead, they get Jason Zandamela, who is ranked consensus-wise higher than Devin Brooks. Interestingly, he plays center for Clearwater International. So it's not necessarily one of those things where, in a lot of situations with centers, you're looking at an offensive lineman that's playing somewhere else on the line. And sometimes it's even offensive tackles. Devin Brooks is actually a right tackle in high school. And so with Jason Zandamela, he's playing the center position right now. One of the interesting things talking to his coach, he actually came to the United States never having played football, didn't really know much about football, didn't know the rules about football. He played rugby and soccer in Mozambique, and came to the point where when he got to Clearwater International, they had to teach him how to get into a stance. They had to teach him about the position he was going to play. When they said, hey, we want you to come in and play guard, he didn't know what a guard was. They don't have guards in soccer, European football. And so he didn't know anything about the position. He didn't know anything about the sport. They had to teach him literally from the ground up. Now, his older brother, had already gone to Clearwater International, and that's why he decided to come along with him and saw that there was great opportunity there from an academic standpoint if you could play football. So he came in and learned to play football his freshman year. He ends up starting as a guard his sophomore year. And talking to the coaching staff there, that's the quickest anybody, and they've had quite a few international players. Lucas Simmons was an international player from Sweden who played offensive tackle. USC recruited him last year, ends up signing with Florida State. A lot of people assumed that maybe Jason Zandamela was going to go to Florida State because he had Lucas Simmons there as a teammate. But with Zandamela, this is even a different kind of story in terms of the progression that he's made as a player over the past few years. And so he actually was able to start as a sophomore in high school, and then they had a need at center, so they decided to shift him over. Now, one of the interesting things that I've always talked about on various different podcasts that we've had is that what a lot of coaches really like about for a center prospect, one of the physical features that they want in their profile is long arms. And it's kind of an odd thing, but the center prospects that Josh Henson has looked at have been very sort of prototypical uh, profile type centers. In other words, they're kind of shorter. They're in that 6'3" range, 6'2" range, or not the 6'5", 300-pound centers, which sometimes you see those guys get recruited. That he likes guys that are a little more sawed off. But the thing about Jason Zandamela, even though he's only 6'3", 285, he's got a 6'11" wingspan. His older brother is 6'7". So there's potential he still grows, but he has those long arms. And that's really just from an evaluation standpoint, the ability to be able to snap the ball and potentially have a Mike linebacker or safety firing up the A gap and getting a paw on him. You know, you're not necessarily going to block him and stop him, but at least slow that pass rusher down, that blitzer coming straight up the middle. So, I mean, you're going to have your hands full with whoever's lined up across from you or in that one shade. And then you're potentially going to have somebody rushing that B gap and getting right in your quarterback's face. So just being able to get your hands out there and be able to get a paw on that guy and slow that pass rush down is really big. And obviously just having long arms from a hiking standpoint is also important. But I think the fact that he was able to come to the United States and didn't know anything about football and be able to start as a sophomore on an offensive line which had multiple D1 prospects, guys that signed very places like obviously you had Luke Simmons, but you also had a right tackle I think that ended up signing with Minnesota. You had quite a few guys on that line that ended up being D1 prospects. So he broke in to that starting lineup having just a couple years ago never even really heard of what a guard position was. So from that standpoint, I mean, kind of miraculous to be perfectly honest with you that he's playing at this level, but still shows that he has the mental capability to be able to absorb everything. Playing the center position is also a very cerebral position because you've got to make all those calls on the offensive line, and that's very difficult. So it's kind of being the quarterback of the offensive line. You're looking at your pass protection, you're looking at any possible blitzes. You have to make all kinds of different calls from that standpoint, and then the actual physical of getting used to playing football and having pads on and a helmet. And so it's pretty miraculous just the transformation he's made both physically and mentally to be able to play this game at this level. And it's going to be interesting to see how much more of a ceiling that he has.
Gerard, I have a bunch of things that have happened since you started that. No commitments. Don't worry. We do have we do have a bunch of questions. Like I retweeted Darian Mayo, the 6'7", good counsel edge rusher. He tweeted some USC stuff, and I retweeted it. And everyone's asking, did he commit? Did he commit? No, he did not commit. He was just showing off a little bit from his visit, some of the video they made for them, and some of the photos.
And we've been trying to get him on the phone. Brian Doon as well, our East Coast recruiting analyst at 24/7 Sports. He and Jalen Harvey, and just getting them for like a full interview of how the visit went. And we're still trying to do that. So, I mean, it's good to hear that he's live. You know, he made it back from the trip, from the yacht.
Nobody fell off. Nobody did anything like that. We also have 3 more donations that have come in since you started. Nice. Speaking about Jason Zandamela,
thank you very much.
Giovanni came back in with another $9.99 donation. I'm up to $20 up on money bags. Hashtag all ego. Yeah. He wants to get in a pissing contest with Moneybags Manford, which I don't know if
we don't call Moneybags for no reason.
A part of it's Moneybags Manford of the Manford Collective these days. I don't know if anyone's pockets are deep enough to run with him, but Giovanni asks, I'm up 20 on Moneybags. Hashtag all ego. One real question this time. What will our commit class look like come kickoff on 8/26? And before we can answer that question, Moneybags Manford then jumped in and said he gave a $10 donation. Thank you for the kind words on yesterday's podcast because we shouted him out, me and Ryan on the Peristyle. And then he came back with a $20 donation. Welcome to the live show, Giovanni. Fight on. So I think it's just a little bit. He's like, oh, we're playing. We want to pick out the checkbook now. So okay, so you dropped 20 in there. So going back to Giovanni's question, what will our commit class look like come kickoff 8/26?
From a number standpoint, you mean the projection of or what?
Yeah, let's go with numbers and maybe like positions. They're 10 right now at 12.
Yeah.
You know, I think the range you wanted was like 18 to 20. Is that?
No,
that's too much.
No, that was last year. Remember, we were talking about what's the over under in terms of where they would be, and you were I think 16, and you ended up being.
I almost got there.
Yeah, they ended up being.
I was
17.
like one. Yeah, I was like one short.
Yeah, and I was at 20, I think, and then I backed it off to like 18, and we ended up sort of being in the middle of that. No, I think we were looking at a dozen to 14 probably coming out of the summer, and that obviously seemed like such a mountain to climb going into June when you had 3 verbal commitments. You're going, where are these commitments going to come from? Well, they came from Cameron Fountain. They came from places that were unexpected, like Manesse Etete. And so, yeah, they have gotten to the point where, yeah, you're looking at probably, 14, 15 guys. I think they've really been aggressive in trying to get this offensive line class sorted out. I mean, they have made some rocket ship decisions that maybe there's some guys that would be lingering around in September and what have you, and they said, you know what, we like the players we could potentially get right here and right now. So I think last week I said it's a bird in the hand is better than a bigger bird in the bush. God, try to say that fast 5 times.
A bird in the hand is better than a bigger
bird in the bush.
Yeah, that's the saying you were trying to figure out 3 weeks ago.
Trying to figure out a way like to make that sound a little better. But nevertheless, like that's sort of what they've looked at as offensive line class. They've looked at the guys that they like now. They're bringing in during the summer. If they can get all the commits during the summer, then they'll go with that group. They're not going to wait around for anybody to kind of linger into maybe September, maybe the season. I think they could have probably pushed and still gotten some commitments from some offensive linemen later, but they have definitely said, you know what, we have a good feeling about the potential, 4 or 5 guys we're going to get now. Let's just go push for it. So I think from that standpoint, you're going to see the offensive line class done. I think you're going to see probably the receiver class done as well. They're really looking to take 3. I'm sure we'll get into this as we start to break down the visitors because you had all those wide receivers on campus last weekend for USC, the sort of A group that they want to have. But I think that's going to get done for sure. Doesn't look like they're going to take a quarterback in the 2024 class, at least as it stands right now.
If you talk to Walter Matthews, he does not believe they're going to take a quarterback. That's what he said.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. The other thing I forgot to mention, can you say where Devin Brooks is for one more time because I love the way you say it.
Clackamas. Yeah, I liked it too. Well, I'm going to be sad about that one. I'm sad about that in Midlothian. Midlothian. I don't have my great mic that Ryan bought me, this great little Logitech mic, which gives me the ability to ASMR. But yeah, Midlothian was just, I thought that was awesome. I thought that sounded so great with Troy. It just, kind of went along. So Clackamas and Midlothian are off the table.
Off the table.
As it stands.
As it stands, yes.
But yeah, I mean, you're looking at a lot of these positions getting sewn up. Now, defensive line, that's going to go into the fall, right? You're not even going to have Jericho Johnson on campus for an official visit until the fall. He does sort of have USC penciled in, and he likes USC a lot. I think USC is in a very good position with him. I haven't spoken to him since the end of or beginning of the summer, but going into the summer, asking him just about his official visits and whether he was going to take one to USC during the summer. He was no, I'm going to take one during the season, try to catch a game, see what the defense looks like. But very, very complimentary of USC. Raved about his unofficial visit during the spring where he was down here, and he just he sounded like he was ready to suit up for USC right then and there. So he's a guy that you're going to have to kind of look at and continue to recruit, and we'll continue to kind of cover his recruitment as you go into the fall. I think Aiden Breland's going to make a decision here before the start of the season, but I don't think that decision is necessarily going to shut down his recruitment completely. The 5-star out of Mater Dei. I think defensive line, there's going to still be some other players out there, and obviously for USC, the transfer portal has been very good to them on the defensive line. And as I've said before, that position caters itself to the transfer portal. I mean, you can plug and play guys so easily from the defensive line. There's not a lot that you need to know schematically to be able to play defensive line play immediately. So if you've got a guy that just physically can come in and get upfield, he's going to be able to play. And so, that's a position that I know that's going to be tempting to go into the transfer portal. The only thing is you never know if you're going to have high quality players in the portal. That's always sort of a little bit of a guessing game.
Absolutely. A couple things from the chat. Anthony is his birthday, so he was asked for a birthday shout out.
Happy birthday, Anthony.
When producer Ryan comes back, maybe we can throw that up on the big screen, the
We have special
banner.
effects for
We
birthdays
yeah,
too. Huh?
I'm not working the board today like I've done usually, so that's producer Ryan today. So
He's already up and walking around. He's over it.
he's writing messages on things. I don't know what he's doing. So he's going to be coming, checking in and out, in and out, in and out. But yes, Jason Zandamela, we're bringing it back to the offensive line. I feel like Justin Dedich and Brett Nealon were both guys who played center position in high school. Like they were their centers for their team, even though I know Justin Dedich at one point played all 5 positions in one single high school game. But I
Yeah.
believe those were two guys who did play strictly or mainly center in their senior years at least.
Remember if Brett did. I can't remember about Brett. I know Justin did for sure, which again it was and is kind of rare. A lot of guys are converted to that position. I think the joke going around Clearwater International because Jason Zandamela's brother, 6'7", is he's either going to be the tallest center in college football or he's going to be the shortest offensive tackle in college football because he has the athleticism
And the arms.
Yeah, the long arms, but the thing that you watch on film, which stood out to me immediately about him, is the pin and pull that they kind of showcase in his film, which is pulling from the center position. You don't see that a whole lot. You takes a lot of quickness to be able to snap that ball, get out of your stance, and get moving across the offensive line to be able to block, whether you're going over to the C gap or you're actually kicking it all the way out to the hash mark. So, that shows his quickness, that shows his flexibility, his fluidity in his hips to be able to kind of get out of that stance and get going. So yeah, he's a guy that at least he has that feel for the center position. And while he's still raw and he still has a lot of football ahead of him, he's already getting into it. And I think the coaches at Clearwater International did him a real solid in doing that, in terms of his ultimate position down the line, where you would have a guy like Devin Brooks, which, is playing right tackle and does a great job. I mean, he's got great film. And like I said, I don't think there's a big gap between Devin Brooks and Jason Zandamela, but you do have one playing right tackle at the high school level, and you do have one already playing center. So there would be a little more of a transition from Devin Brooks, at least from that standpoint. Obviously, not from the standpoint of never having seen or really played football by the time you got into high school.
And now with Zandimela in the fold, that gives USC 3 commitments for Josh Henson and this O-line class. That is him, Jason Zandamela, Manassas Etite, out of Sacramento,
Modesto Central Catholic High
and
School.
then Hayden Treater. We still haven't gotten like a firm confirmation. That's our bad. But 6'6", 320 pounds, plays interior for his high school team. So maybe an interior, maybe a right guard or right tackle, excuse me, at the next level. Kind of an Andrew Voorhees kind of vibe. So definitely building up the interior for USC's second wave under Josh Henson, but a really good athletic group with some guys that are a little bit raw with Tite and Zandamela, guys you will have to work with, but a lot of like really good physical attributes, which is what you want in your O-line selections. You want guys that you can project well, that can put on more weight, that you look at the measurables, long arms, long legs, stuff like that, that you want to be able to, get them in a college weight room, get them on a nutrition program, and then we can develop them. So really good looking class right now. 2 consensus 4-stars, which is, I feel like the most they've had since 2017.
Yeah, consensus, yes.
Yeah, so it's been a while since they've gotten some guys like that rolling in, and they broke that drought with Elijah Page last season. So now it looks like it's going to, become the standard where they're getting high end blue chip kind of offensive linemen, and then some guys you can kind of build up like a Hayden Treader, Tobias Raymond, those guys that are really good body and frames that you can just develop and put weight on them and see what they turn into down the line. But you want to get those blue chips in there. You want to get guys who are high 4-stars out of high school. And Zandamela, I will say, going back when I was looking at his offer story, he's actually risen in the rankings quite a bit. He was near down the bottom, like 180, 150, and now he's top 100 at 62 for our ranking. So he is a prospect.
To Lucas Simmons was kind of like that. He started out low. I mean, these are international kids, so they are raw and they have not played a whole lot of football. And in Jason Zandamela's case, no football at all before he came to the United States. And so this whole journey for him has been very academic driven, and I think his commitment to USC had a lot to do with it. His father is still back in Mozambique, and this is all about, son, give yourself an opportunity for life later on. This is not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. And his case is very much true. He wants to have that opportunity in this country to have a great job and a great career. And so you have to understand that these are not these are not a family that have watched football and look at football as this vehicle to become a multimillionaire like maybe American kids have. It's really more like, okay, well, that sounds great. That's amazing if that happens, but you know what we can do? We can get a great college degree. And that's the thing that's going to happen right here, right now. That's the more tangible thing for them. And so, Jason Zandamela picking USC had a lot to do with the academic side of things. And a lot of people, I think, made some assumptions about him going to Florida State because of Lucas Simmons. But, for Jason, he wants to be an entrepreneur. He's going to take part in the entrepreneur program at USC, part of the business school. And he's just excited to have that opportunity. So, the travel, the maturity factor, obviously leaving Africa and coming to the United States and not knowing the sport at all, and just knowing that, hey, his brother went to Clearwater Academy International and was able to get a great education out of it. And that value in and of itself was enough to bring Jason to the United States.
Anything else you want to add about Jason before we move on to our next commitment that came in earlier this week?
We will have a full sort of breakdown, evaluation, and maybe some little behind the scenes talking to his coaches a little bit about him, because there is a very interesting story with him. Just a miracle sort of progression that he's made since he's come to the States and playing this position, and some interesting things just that his coach had to say about him. But no, I mean, we can get to talking about like the guy that's almost the exact opposite from that standpoint, Marcellus Williams, who knew everything about USC before he committed, has been a football fan since he was an infant. Kind of the exact opposite from Jason Zandamela.
Yeah, Marcellus Williams, St. John Bosco cornerback out of Bellflower, California. Another consensus 4-star prospect, a top 100 consensus prospect in Marcellus. 5'11", 185 pounds, number 55 overall prospect, number 7 cornerback in the 247 sports rankings, number 73 overall, and the number 9 cornerback in the 24/7 sports composite. And this has been a super, super long recruitment. Obviously, since Max Williams became a Trojan, he is the youngest brother of Max Williams, USC's redshirt senior safety and a starter last year at the strong safety, former nickel starter. So moving him all around. But Marcellus, as we've talked about, has had a long, long recruiting process because he's the youngest of 2 Division I brothers, and Mason Williams, who's at Arizona State, and Max, who's at USC. So there's been a lot of hype and build around Marcellus, who Max Williams would tell you. He tweeted out, Marcellus is the best of these Williams brothers. He is the tallest, he is the longest, and he is at St. John Bosco, was on their national championship team last year, played for that defense as their number 1 corner, had offers from USC, Oklahoma, UCLA, Alabama, Arizona, Michigan. So 30-plus offers for this kid. Was going around the country taking a bunch of visits. We felt Ohio State was a contender really early. And then it kind of whittled down to USC, Oklahoma, and then UCLA, the only 3 official visits that he took during the summer process, UCLA being first, then Oklahoma, and then he finished out with USC on this Golden Hour trip. And then, tweeted out during his visit, Father, I got a surprise for you, and he's going to make a commitment on Father's Day, which was Sunday.
I don't think it was a surprise, Chris.
Well, not a surprise, but just something he wanted to do for his dad and make a commitment on Sunday. And I believe he did it Sunday morning while they were at Crypto Arena for their the breakfast, which they did last year as well. So made a commitment there. I believe his dad posted video of it. But another big local get for Dante Williams. Could we say it's a Dante Williams revenge tour? A little bit, a little bit. So him and Dakota Fields, 2 of the top 3 cornerback prospects in California, Xavier Brown being the other one. So maybe there's an outside chance that Dante gets all 3 of those guys as top 3 local cornerbacks, but a very good 1-2 combo right now with Marcellus, is 5'11", 185, and then Dakota, who's 6'2", 185 pounds as well. So a nice variety that Dante Williams has added for this class.
Yeah, certainly very different body types, different players at cornerback when you're talking about Dakota and Marcellus. But we were wrong, Chris. We have to say this out front. We were wrong.
I have no ego. I'm a 1-star. I have no ego.
We were wrong. According to the Indians, Marcellus Williams was a Trojan at birth. There was no way anyone was ever going to convince him to go to another school. Chris and I both felt like that wasn't the case. That there was some stretches during his recruitment where he was frustrated with the defense and perhaps the player development, and that he could go somewhere else.
Does that include Clay Helton? If he was still around?
Brooks, that Clay Helton could have been the defensive coordinator, and he would have committed to USC anyway. So
Interesting. Okay.
hyperbole there. But nevertheless, Greg says no, he was locked in all along. You guys were feeding into the drama that Marcellus was trying to create with the recruiting process. But nevertheless, he is now a Trojan officially, and he is opposite of Dakota Fields. And the first question that comes up: okay, who plays boundary corner? Who plays field corner? And I think Dakota is hard to pin down because yes, he's tall and he's long, and the more bigger physical corners you tend to put in the boundary, there's less field there that you have to work with, and they can kind of bully receivers with the press a little more. But Dakota is also a track guy. I mean, he has some decent track times behind him, and I think with Marcellus, although he's not as big and as long, he is more physical, and he's not necessarily a long speed guy. So I think there's some debate there as to if you're actually putting either of those guys on the field side. The field side is where you need to have the guy that can run the 10-8, the 10-7, who's got the long speed, who's got the quickness and the agility to be able to play in open space because you've got more field. So it's just dependent on what USC wants to do. If they want to have some travel with their cornerbacks and put their best cornerback on the best receiver, or they want to actually play field side, boundary side. We'll see how it goes in terms of personnel and what they have. They definitely have an incredibly physical cornerback room right now. I mean, you're adding Traquan Figgins there. You already have Sierra Wright. You have a lot of 6 foot plus cornerbacks on the roster, and that's going to help a lot with the RPO. Quarterbacks these days end up finding themselves having to contain the run a lot more than they ever did because the RPO is just an extension of their running game behind the line of scrimmage with these little tunnel screens and these little bubble screens that they run. And you're going to have to take on a lot of blockers. You're going to have receivers out there. Sometimes you might have a tight end that you have to kick out there. And all of a sudden your cornerback is taking on an actual tight end instead of other small receiver, right? So you have to have guys that are a little more physical these days when you play against those type of teams that play very laterally in the passing game. So I think with Marcellus Williams, you get a guy that certainly initially could probably play a little bit of nickel as well. He is very smart. He's very technical. And Greg actually predicted out of that group that I mentioned that he could be better than all those players. And he has the ability to really put it all together. Obviously, he's bigger and he's a bit faster than Max Williams. But does he have those intangibles that Max Williams does? Because if he does, if he actually pieces all that together, then I could see where Greg's prediction might turn out to be 100% spot on because we've seen Max Williams do things that
He's a great football mind and player. Just not, obviously, he's smaller. He's not as fast as a lot of guys, but just a great football player and makes good football plays.
It's inexplicable sometimes, the things that he can do. Coming to 2 ACLs. Max is got to be an inspiration to a lot of guys in that locker room. I hope he is because he does everything right, and the work that he puts in, and not being the biggest or fastest guy. So certainly, if Marcellus is able to do some of that with more physical attributes, more tangibles behind him, I think that could be fantastic for USC. And again, Greg Biggins was very complimentary of him. Salt of the earth cake, as Greg talked about him. But in terms of just being able to go and make an impact, also felt like, of the cornerbacks that USC had, that he could be better than any of those guys. So going to be very interesting. We talked about USC needing to get one out of those 3 local cornerbacks coming into the summer. That, maybe it was a low bar to set, but I felt like the way they were looking, there was a possibility they might be able to get somebody from out of state and pair them. And then you have that sort of nickel quasi safety position. At this point, it looks like they could take 3 cornerbacks. Are they going to take 3 safeties on top of that? I mean, that kind of remains to be seen. I think it depends on who's available. Is Peyton Woodyard back in the fold? Is he going to stay committed to Georgia? I guess we could talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of what's available and what you have, certainly with Xavier still out there, he's going to take that official visit to Alabama this weekend. The feel is Alabama's lead school. God bless you.
Excuse me, it's live.
That might be one of this. This kind of might be the weekend where we kind of figure out whether USC is a real player for Xavier Brown. A lot of people thought before the summer it was Ohio State, it was Alabama. USC was playing way behind that group, and now it's a little more like, well, maybe USC is actually pulled ahead of Ohio State, and it's more of an Alabama USC battle. So we'll see if they get all three. I mean, that it is the Dante Williams revenge tour for sure. But I think getting these two wrapped up is huge. I think that now that you have those two guys, you have a great base to work from, and we can't overlook the fact that they did bring in Traquan Figgins already in the spring.
Couple things. One is a quick story about Marcellus Williams. One of the first moments, because I've known him for a long time, obviously covering Max, and he was always around Sarah practices. His dad, Big Max, introduced me when he was felt like he was just a baby. But he's been around a lot. But one defining moment I remember him is that he was he suited up with the premium team, the 7-on-7 team that Max used to play for, and he was on the team as a seventh grader, sixth grader, and then one time they just put him out there for a rep against high school guys. And he played coverage well. He did not give up the pass, and everyone went crazy for him on the sideline. So Marcellus has always been, obviously, that young guy around older guys.
Literally the exact opposite of James. Like you. I mean, really, it was a great transition because they're literally, when you talk about experience of being around the game, almost just complete opposite.
He's just been around it his whole life and always been, the younger guy that was brought up by older players, more developed players, because he's obviously younger.
Yep.
So he's always been ready for the moment and always, had to compete against older guys, and he loved doing that. So he's tailor-made to be like a number one cornerback. He has that kind of mindset. Number two, we have over 400 people tuned in live at a 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Can I just get your reaction to that?
Wow, how many people?
Over 400.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys for leaving work. For those who have decided to
or avoiding work.
Avoiding work. Watching a YouTube video for 4 hours during work is probably not going to keep you employed. But thank you anyways. And for those who are off work and just chilling after work, hey, welcome to the show. And hope you guys are all subscribed to the Peristyle. So I see you on the other side when we're in those threads, knee deep in bickering about Taylor Tatum and whether baseball is the ultimate thing that's going to get him committed to a school. Are we going to talk about that?
Tatum, as he's known around these parts. The other thing is we have 85 likes so far on this video. If we can get to 247, if we can get to 247, I will make a little special announcement about something for this show moving forward that I think you guys will be very excited for. So 247 likes. I think we could do that with over 400 people watching. So give us a like on there.
Such a millennial. Ryan and I just never ever think in this way.
Hey, what are you doing? He does all the like and subscribe stuff before every podcast.
You gamify it in such a way. You make it competitive.
Some people like gamified stuff. You're a gamer. You should know this. You should be a part of that. I'm not EA charging for stuff. I'm not saying buy bits so you can give us bits or whatever. I'm not doing that. Just give us a like. That's all I ask. And look, we're already over 100. It's working.
You know why? It's because I'm making great eye contact with him.
He's making great eye contact with the camera. The other thing I wanted to add, Marcellus Williams did come off his Oklahoma visit into this USC visit, and then while he was on the USC visit, he tweeted out a photo of the Orange Bowl trophy from USC's infamous win over Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's right.
Ignorance or trolling?
With him, trolling. He probably has a pretty good idea of that double nickel and what it signified post Oklahoma visit. Yeah, I think so.
How do we feel about just in general Oklahoma using the Heismans in their photo shoots? The Lincoln Riley Heismans.
Oh no, I mean those are Oklahoma Heismans.
I know, but it's just so much bad blood about it, and it's
was much more of a cringe moment when they went back and had that ceremony for Kyler Murray. And it was a Heisman ceremony thing that they did for Kyler Murray in the middle of last season. And it was right around the time where Caleb Williams was in the Heisman run or whatever, and I was like, what? Why are you doing this now? Like Kyler Murray won it how many years ago? Like it just didn't make it. It really was just like, hey, we have Heisman Trophy winners too. Caleb, don't worry about Caleb. Don't look at Caleb.
Don't look over there. Don't look at the West Coast. Okay, that is pretty much going to wrap the cold open for us with the commitments. Anything else you want to add about Marcellus? Do you want to go into Golden Hour, or should we talk about Taylor Tatum? I feel like the message board or the chat right now really wants us to pivot to Taylor Tatum. So I'm going to let you decide, or maybe the chat will go crazy, telling us what they want us to talk about right now. But anything else on Marcellus you need to add?
No, I think we've talked about Marcellus quite a bit, over the course of the year, and certainly was a big local get for USC. One of the other things I talked to Greg Biggins about, and Greg and I don't share the opinion on everything, but I thought it was interesting when I asked him, is this sort of USC turning the corner with local recruiting? Is this USC turning the corner at Bosco, which maybe more importantly for Trojan fans has been a place where it's just been an empty well, and they want to build that pipeline because Bosco's had so many tremendous players that have come through the program the past, really like 5-6 years. And he felt like this is more a Marcellus Williams thing. Marcellus was going to Servite. If he was going to Sarah, if he was going to another school, he would still end up a Trojan. He said that with Kingston, Veliamuasa, and Peyton Woodyard, that would be bigger in terms of getting a player from Bosco that you really had to fight for, and you sort of showed that you turned the corner with Bosco players. In terms of locally, yeah, USC's doing well locally. They've improved somewhat, but he still felt like the big fish were out there. And talking about Kingston, talking about Peyton, also talking about Xavier Brown, like that would be a gigantic commitment for USC to be able to get, one of those big modern day guys, and that would sort of signify maybe reestablish USC local recruiting. But then Greg also had the opinion that USC doesn't have to really build that wall and that fence, that you go after the best players, period. And while I agree with that, I think you do go after the best players, period. I think there is a consistency and there's a model that you have to approach with recruiting, and it has to start at home. And if you have a bunch of good players and consistently